Here on our show, we've explored the flaws in Oregon's mental health system. In the most severe cases, Oregon effectively waits for someone with severe mental illness to commit a serious crime before requiring treatment. But there's a growing appetite for change. An update to our Uncommitted series is our big story tonight. We're talking about civil commitment, the term for forced mental health care, when someone with severe mental illness meets the strict standard of being dangerous to themselves or others. It's a high bar, and rightfully so. Taking away someone's medical rights and liberties is no small decision. But in recent years, civil commitment in Oregon has become effectively non-existent. If you're a longtime viewer, you may remember some of the people we've talked to. Kenny Benton did not meet standards for involuntary mental health care. At one point, he was held in jail because the Oregon State Hospital was full. Jeff and Kathy's son got on a plane and flew to New York while experiencing hallucinations and psychosis. He actually got help in New York City that he couldn't get in Oregon. And Hunter Graham's son Austin killed his mother and Hunter's wife Teresa in a psychotic break. A heartbreaking story after his parents tried everything but could not force him to get care because he didn't accept it and was not deemed a serious danger to himself or others. All of that leads us to a new effort to change Oregon's civil commitment laws, with the goal of making it easier to force someone into mental health treatment if they have a severe mental illness. This new plan comes from NAMI Oregon, the statewide chapter of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, a nonprofit that works to support people and families dealing with mental health issues. Director Chris Boneff says their proposal is meant to stop failing people when they need our help.
It's ridiculous that all of us might look at somebody and say, you know what, it's time to intervene here, and we can't. And so we have to solve that problem. We have to reverse the criminalization of having a severe mental illness.
Let's explain what Boneff and NAMI's plan would do. Oregon's civil commitment law currently uses phrases like danger to self and danger to others, but it doesn't define those phrases. And over the years, the judicial interpretation has gotten so narrow, it's very hard to reach that bar. The NAMI proposal would add clarity, directing judges to look at a person's past behavior that seriously harmed themselves or others, their past repeated hospitalizations or psychiatric evaluations, and whether a person is reasonably likely to seriously harm themselves or others in the next 30 days.
Under our current standards, if you ask me, are you thinking of harming yourself, and I say no, I no longer meet criteria, even though clinically and everything else may indicate that I'm at a significant risk, elevated risk for continued self-harm.
This is a top priority for a lot of people I've talked to who are deeply involved with Oregon's mental health care system. Family members, doctors, advocates, judges, and more. But changing the threshold for civil commitment would not do much by itself. The Oregon State Hospital is full. Oregon desperately needs more treatment and care options, facilities, homes. Boneff says decades of underinvestment created these problems, and Oregon's only way out is to provide better mental health care earlier on.
This is not a comprehensive solution. We have to admit that if we're going to do that. We have to acknowledge that. You pass this law, the world doesn't change overnight. It doesn't get better on the streets of Portland. We're not solving the homeless crisis. We're really solving a healthcare crisis. And that healthcare crisis is people have to commit a crime today before we'll do something. And guess what? They are. And the state hospital is full of it. So why should someone, if we're going to compel them into care, why should someone have to commit a crime? That's ridiculous, right? It doesn't solve the real problem, which is why do we allow someone to reach that level of acuity when we know if we invest in different services, if when a problem first arises, I first have symptoms and we intervene then, and we know we're very successful at keeping someone on a normal life path if we do that. It doesn't solve that problem. We're addressing strategically one little element, but we have to shut down the floodgates that are feeding that system.
Now, I have talked with some groups like Disability Rights Oregon, for example, who oppose any lowering of civil commitment standards, seeing it as a threat to a person's rights. Also, context matters here. Oregon has not exactly been a shining example for forced mental health care.
You cannot look at Oregon's history and say we ever did this well. And in fact, we abused people. We abused people so much, the United States Department of Justice came in here and said, you are violating their civil rights. So there is nowhere in our past that you can look back and say, we exercised the power of the state to the benefit of the people we were committing. That doesn't exist. So we have that challenge.
You believe Oregon can do this now and can do it right?
You know, if I didn't believe that, there was some modicum of hope. I suppose I'd give up, retire, and go become a hermit somewhere. I think you can.
This is not the first time there have been attempts to change these civil commitment laws. Lawmakers introduced bills in 2019 and 2021, but they died in committee. Bonnet believes there's enough momentum now, the key difference being that NAMI Oregon, a big party in this, is now leading this charge with a concrete proposal. He expects a bill to be drafted by next month.
I do think the time is right in Oregon that this needs to happen. We just have sort of reached that point. I mean, there seems to be broad consensus that we want to do something.
So what do you think about NAMI's proposal to further define danger to self or others and potentially lower this bar to force someone into mental health treatment? Is it a step in the right direction? Is it trampling on civil rights? Let us know. Email the story at kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail 503-226-5090.